I said this, that they may believe that you sent me. Now when he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he who had died, this is the cool part about this story. If you catch nothing else, catch this. When he said, Lazarus, come forth, he who had died came out, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was wrapped with a cloth. And Jesus said to them, loose him and let him go. Let him go. He's called him forth from death into life, and now Lazarus lives.
No. Yes,
So I want to look into this because there are a couple of key significant things that I believe we can draw from this story of Lazarus and apply to our lives. The first part was there any confusion that Lazarus was dead? Do you see any reason, any legal reason why you could say that Lazarus lived? He was dead. Jesus would have saved him, but would you really have believed if his soul was lingering in his body? What are you saying? Lazarus is dead. His soul's departed. Whatever you think about the situation, only God can do this miracle. So I want to look at how we, on this earth, are in a similar situation to Lazarus. How are we confirmed as dead? You see, sometimes we call ourselves Christians, don't have a relationship with God, but think that we're alive. You know, back in the Garden of Eden, Genesis 3, you'll start to see the story about Adam and Eve. And for those of you who know the story, Eve is there in the garden and there's a tree. It's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And James, are you live streaming from your phone?
Yes.
That's incredible. Let's give James a hand. To buy a coffee for James because he's sitting here with his phone recording right now.
There's no
Thank
power.
you, James.
Because
Wow, there's no power. That's why this is happening. So if you were to take a wander back into the Garden of Eden and look, you would see the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and day after day you would watch as or Satan. He's the adversary to God. He's not equal to God, but he's an adversary, meaning that he's opposed to everything that God is doing, everything about who God is. This serpent, this enemy, is trying to make himself a king. And because you and I were created in his image, God's image, he wants to destroy that to hurt God. He wants to destroy you to hurt God. He wants you to never be alive so that God may not enjoy his creation and love the creation and have creation love him back. That's the enemy's purpose. And so he said to Eve, did God really say this? And so we know the next part is Eve takes of the fruit and she eats. Now, I want to pause the scene there for a moment. We've got Eve eating the fruit. Now she's looking at her body. God said, I would die, or lest you die. Now Eve is now going to get two consultants to come in and tell her whether she's alive. The first consultant she's going to bring in is a physician. So the physician comes in and fronts up and says, all right, let's have a look at your body. Can you move your arms? All right, now what I want you to do is I want you to do a little jog on your feet. Eve does a little jog on her feet. And the physician looks at her and says, well, you seem to be in good working order. I pronounce you alive. Okay, who's the second consultant? Well, second consultant Eve calls in is the psychiatrist. I'm made of a few parts, Eve says. I'm made of a soul and I'm made of a body. So let's call in a psychiatrist to evaluate my soul. And so the psychiatrist comes and puts her on a couch. He just builds one out of nowhere. And he says, all right, Eve, we're going to start to ask you a couple of questions. How are you feeling? He says, well, I think I'm okay. Marriage is okay. I'm pretty young at this. You know, Adam's doing all right. I'm doing all right. And he starts to ask her a couple of questions about her mind. 1 + 1, 2, 4, something like that. I don't know if mathematics was in at that point. But I do know one thing is that at that moment, well, the psychiatrist says, Eve, I pronounce you alive. And so now Eve has got 67% of a vote. 2/3 of the entire vote saying that she's alive. God said she's dead. 2/3 of the vote of her wholeness say that she's alive. And so she goes with that opinion. That I'm going to go with the opinion of the physician and I'm going to go with the opinion of the psychiatrist and I'm going to be alive. Well, what God said. you are dead. Friends, we're created as spiritual beings primarily, and I hope and I pray tonight that this will come through. That if God calls us alive, we're alive.
Good.
If God calls us dead, we're dead.
Good,
okay? But we try and trick ourselves sometimes. And we say, I'm going to get the opinion of the physician. I'm going to go to the gym as long as I'm looking good, my body's in good health. I'm alive, I feel good. My senses tell me that I'm okay. I had my coffee this morning. I'm doing all right. You know, the psychiatrist, we get him all of the time to appeal to our senses. You know, and I believe that the psychiatrist's greatest work is gossip. But he tries to appeal to your sense and your feeling nature. And he says, hey, it's all right. I'm just going to satisfy your soul. I'm going to inject whatever message I need to inject into you so that you feel good and you feel alive. Now, when you wake up in the morning, you just take that spring step. That's not the opinion of God. Spirit, you may live out your days on earth, but come the time when I've desired a relationship with you,
It's good, Kyle.
you will not be in that place.
Yeah.
And I want and I desire so dearly to be connected with you, but you're satisfying yourself with the opinion of 2/3 of the vote. And can I tell you that this body may perish and this soul may perish. So 2/3 of the vote is not even correct, because the whole vote is God's, your created spirit.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so can I tell you that we are confirmed dead. We may tell ourselves that we're alive, but I tell you what, in the opinion of the only one who matters,
Yes.
you and I are dead. You and I are dead. You know, I remember I asked a girl a little while ago, do animals go to heaven? And she said, yes, animals go to heaven. My dog will go to heaven. And you know what? Can we just bring the truth around that for just a moment? These beings, dogs, ants, cats, you know, until we have the Spirit of God living inside us, we're just like them. We have a soul, we have a body, but unless the Spirit is engaged in God, we're nothing. So, we're confirmed dead. How did Lazarus die? Well, it says Lazarus was sick. And we know that the moment we're born into sin. There's nothing that will keep us from that. And I believe with Eve, she did a little thing called window shopping. Women, can you just show me your hands? I'm going to ask the men in a second. Can you please just lift your hands if you've ever been to the shopping centres and looked at a dress and decided that you want that dress? Mum putting up her hand, I can attest to that one. But can you give me a truthful answer just now? If you've ever been to the shops and you said, I'm not going to get that now, but that's something I want. Now, men, we'll do the same thing, okay? Because I don't want to just one-sided here. But men, can you just lift your hand if you've ever been past seen a car, or you've seen something that you desired so much in the window of somewhere, and you wanted that thing? Can you just show me your hands? Fantastic. So we've window shopped. I believe Eve in the garden, she window shopped that forbidden fruit. And there's a phrase I want to use tonight, is that the thought is the father of the deed. Friends, when we're talking about sin, sin comes into our life not because the deed happens straight away, but because often there's a thought of it prior. Now I reckon Eve looked at that forbidden fruit and she walked past it one day and no, God said no. And then she walked past it another day, God said no.
Yeah.
And then each day, she might have started to come to a place where she said, well, hang on. It does look delicious. And it is a really nice, vibrant colour. And I wonder what that would taste like. And in her mind, I believe that these things just started to go around and start to populate her mind. Her awareness started to move from God Almighty to what it would be like if she ate that fruit. Now, where I'm going with this, friends, is that sometimes the way we move on a journey to death from life, speaking to the Christians right now, those who are in a relationship with God, is when we lose our awareness of God and become aware of the things of this world. Okay, so she was window shopping. And same with us, is when we allow our senses to overflow us, to consume us, that's where we fall into the trap and snare of sin. The next part I want to just talk about now is that Jesus brings Lazarus to life. Every funeral that Jesus went to, he brought life. There's no question about it. He was on a funeral march. And you'll notice that when he talks to people, he doesn't talk to people just about healing in their body. If you look in the words in the Bible, in the translation, when he lays hands on someone, you'll know the phrase, he makes them whole. What's that word whole? That word whole is sozo. It means complete. It means not just a healing from sickness, it is complete. It's talking about an entirety of a person. So Jesus' whole purpose when he was walking through, when he was healing people, was to bring people into wholeness. Not just to wake them up from sleep, not just to heal their body, but to bring them into a spiritual wholeness. And that's what he has for you and me. Jesus lived his life on a funeral march, and he wants you and I to know his heart. It's not just about him completely. He wants to bring you to life. And his funeral brought everyone whom he touched everlasting life. Now, friends, some of you might be Lazarus tonight. Some of you might want to interchange that word. When Jesus said, Lazarus, come forth, you might put your name in there. As I say, Lazarus, come forth. If you're feeling dead inside, if you're feeling sick in your body, if you're feeling out of relationship with God, I want you to put your name in that place. James, come forth. Ian, come forth. Bill, come forth. Emma, come forth. It's the word that Jesus is saying tonight is wherever you are, let him call you forth. Good. Death into life. It's what he wants to do tonight. But it goes on further than this. Jesus didn't come to bring life so that we would just receive it. But get this, in Colossians 1, Paul starts to talk about his purpose to preach the gospel. See, what good would it be if we were brought to life but then did nothing from there? No, Jesus came so that you and I could have life. And it says life more abundantly. But can I tell you that that life more abundantly is about, I believe, bringing people to him. Because the question I could ask is, well, Lord, what does an abundant life look like? Is an abundant life riches? Well, it can't be riches. It can't just be riches, because I go to places like Mozambique and I see plenty of people who love Jesus in poverty. So it can't just be riches. Is it that I might have a nice car? No, an abundant life can't just be about cars or possessions. Well, is an abundant life then about how healthy I am in my body? Well, yes, I believe that can be, because the Lord promises a blessing to us. But can I tell you that I believe an abundant life is about the reward that we have in eternity, and that is the people that he gathers to us because we are Christ. He is Christ in us, the hope of glory. What does that mean? That he gathers to us life that can overflow because we are a center for his life. Does that make sense to you tonight? Good. So, Colossians 1.